Welcome back, my lover of wisdom. Welcome to another Wednesday live session where you are joining the Zoom room and are able to put your questions forward to me. Anything that is upsetting you, anything that is frustrating you, or if you would like to ask me about strategies for achieving your goals, setting your goals, and generally realizing your dream or your life purpose, I want you to think about the goal that you want to achieve by the end of this year. Write it down. Write it in the comments in this Zoom room, or write it in the comments below. I hope that it's a SMART goal, a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It is, of course, time-bound because we said that it's going to be manifested within a year from now. We're going to be working on this goal, and specifically we're going to be unblocking anything that may be holding you back from realizing this goal. In the first half of this session, we're going to work on the conscious blockages, and in the second half, we're going to be working on the unconscious blockages. So prepare yourself for what I call a transformation from fear to freedom. This is going to occur within this session. So the first thing I'd like you to look at is when you look at that goal, what is a fear, a conscious fear that you have about your ability to realize this goal? You have a certain fear, a certain anxiety, a certain belief that it's the reason why it may not be realized. And I'd like you to write it down. Type it in the comments below, write it in your notebook, or here in the Zoom messages. Go ahead and I'll give you a few moments to write down these reservations, these fears, these insecurities. I see you slowly listing your fears in the comments, and that's great because we really want you to participate. The more you engage in this session, the more you will get out of it, obviously. So go ahead and round up those 3 fears or reservations. Now I want you to look at those 3 fears or reservations and choose one. Choose what you believe to be the biggest obstacle, the biggest fear, the thought that causes you the most anxiety. And I want you to imagine that this fear, this belief is actually true. That you're right. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what is limiting you. Just think, yes, this is definitely the way I believe it is. This fear is a reality. And while you're looking at that with certainty that you're right about that, observe for a moment what's happening in your body when you believe that that is true. When you believe that that statement is true, what happens to you on a physical level? Physically, literally, what is happening to you? Do you feel a headache? Do you feel a tightness in your throat about the injustice? Do you feel a constraint here in the thorax area, the breast area? Do you feel cramps in your stomach or abdomen? Does it make you itch? Do you have some kind of eczema? What is the manifestation on the physical level of this fear? Simply take note of that. Say, I observe that when I believe that this thought is true, this is the side effect. This is the symptom. It triggers off these symptoms in me physically. What are those symptoms? And now I want you to observe any other side effects or symptoms. What happens to you? Might be your body posture becomes more cramped. If you want, you can also imagine a scenario of the future, your future, which is spoiled, which is destroyed because of this belief, like this is happening. If that actually happens, if you run out of money, if you find no support, if you believe you're not worthy, what is the scenario that you imagine yourself to be in? The negative scenario, a scenario, what's going to happen? So you have the belief and you have the result that you believe this is going to happen. And again, simply start to take note of how you feel when you believe that belief. And now we will proceed with the Alkistis method, the 3 filters that will help us to really look at our thoughts critically, objectively, and to see what is useful or what is not useful in this way of thinking. So the first thing I want you to consider is it true? Are you 100% certain that that belief is definite? If you believe it's true, you have to show some proof. Prove that this belief is true. And remember, just because something has happened up until now, it doesn't mean that it needs to continue in the future. We are talking about the occurrence of this in the future. So is it true? Are you definitely certain that this is going to happen? 100% true? 1 out of 100, how true is that statement? How true is your belief? if you're being totally honest with yourself? Are you perhaps dramatizing? Are you perhaps taking things too personally? Are you generalizing? Are you just like applying this to everything? So ask yourself for a moment, who could you be if you didn't have that thought? Just pause for a moment and say, if I didn't have that thought and I was free, how could I be? Who could I be? Just imagine the future happening without that thought. What sorts of thoughts could you have instead of that thought? If you can't think of something for yourself, imagine someone who you admire, one of your mentors, or a person that you greatly admire. What sort of thoughts would they have instead? And you're welcome to share in the notes, in the messages, and I will read them. Who could you be without that thought? So now look at that thought again and ask yourself, how true was that original limiting belief? How true is it out of 100? So perhaps you begin to realize that you have been lying to yourself or telling yourself half-truths. Perhaps you have picked up that limiting thought from someone in your childhood or your adolescence, or someone in your immediate environment. Can you think of someone who has said this or has had this type of thinking in your environment? I mean, perhaps they were someone who really loved you and were trying to warn you. They're trying to protect you. And they said, well, you're never going to be able to achieve this. Very often, you know, it's our own mother who said, you know, I never achieved this, so how do you expect to achieve it? Where I am now, you will be in the future. Has your mother ever scolded you or warned you or put in this fear way of thinking? Who do you think you are to have this kind of thought? Who do you think you are to open your own business? Who do you think you are to become a CEO? Who do you think you are to become a leader? This kind of thinking. Have there been people in your environment, in your family, or in your society who have been limiting your thinking and may have cultivated these sort of lies inside of you? And I say it is a lie because they have cultivated this belief system, this limiting BS belief system. Think perhaps back in your childhood, what influences you may have had that are still influencing you. And simply take note of that. Take a few notes down of who these people or this person or this society or culture might be that's limiting you and still have a hold on you. And again, look at your original belief system and ask yourself, what if the opposite were true? What if the opposite were true? I'm not saying that the opposite is true, but simply try on this thought. For example, I don't have the support to achieve X goal. What if the opposite were true? I haven't looked in the right places to find the support to help me manifest this goal. Or maybe it's, I'll never have a healthy relationship. Maybe try on the opposite. I am attracting, I am manifesting, I can attract the right relationship for me. Simply try on the opposite, okay? They don't want me in that group. The opposite would be, down deep inside, maybe I'm rejecting that group. I've been rejecting this group of people. Whatever your thought is, try to find the opposite. And I'm not saying that the opposite is true, but it helps to flip your thoughts around. It helps to try on a different perspective. It helps to see things from a different angle, to reframe, as they say, a situation. Reframe your belief so that it's opposite. Just try that on for a moment. What does that do with you? It helps you to get unstuck from where you have been sitting in this disempowering situation. So now let's move to the next question of the Alkistis method. Is it kind? Ask yourself, is it kind when you say this belief system, when you hold this belief, when you imprison yourself and limit yourself by constantly repeating this limiting belief? Is that a kind thing to say to yourself? Imagine someone from the outside were to tell you the same thing. Wouldn't you be upset with them? And yet, you allow yourself to talk to your own self in that way and reinforce it by repeating it. No, my dear friend, it's not a kind thing. Now I want you to see, is it a kind thing to think about another person or the other people who are involved? If there are other people involved, if your belief system involves other people, is it kind? You know, Plato, the Greek philosopher, used to say that we should treat other people with kindness and respect, because we really don't know what a great burden they may be having. They may have a trauma that you have no idea about. Each person is carrying their own cross, as they say. So I would like you to soften up your way of thinking regarding the other people involved. Not to label them. Avoid labels that limit the other person, because you're fixating them. You're tagging them, you're labeling them, you're putting them in a file, in a drawer, labeled, you know, idiot, bitch, you know, jerk, whatever you may be calling them. So take a moment to remove that label and just simply soften your heart and understand that that person too is fighting with their own limitations. Look at the issue from their perspective. Become an advocate from their point of view. Excellent. You're doing great. Now, let's move to the third filter. Is it useful when you repeat this limiting belief to yourself? This lie that you keep telling yourself. Is it useful? Perhaps there is some grain of truth in it. Perhaps there is something that you could put to use. But be very careful if you are allowing that thought to paralyze you, to stop you from being in the flow. And that's what that thought is, my dear friend. It is not useful to you. It is sabotaging you. So now we come to the moment of transformation. I want you to rephrase your original limiting belief or fear. Rephrase it so that it becomes an empowering statement. Okay? For example, you can say, sometimes this happens, and I'm okay with that. You can add the word sometimes, and I'm okay with that at the end. Or you can transform that phrase completely. I'm giving you a little time now to rewrite your limiting belief. Change it so that it is an empowering, positive statement. See that you phrase your sentence in the present continuous or the present tense, beginning with I am. Or I something. It has to be in the present or present continuous. Okay? Not I will, but I am. I do, I look after, I love, I wake up. Begin your sentence with a verb that is in the present or present continuous. You're doing great so far, and I'm going to just give you a little time to rework that statement. And when you're ready, please go ahead and share it in the comments. Okay, so there you have it, your new positive affirmation. Every time the old belief system crops up in your head, switch it and apply this new empowering belief. That's your daily practice. You should welcome your old belief if it happens to crop up, because it will be the opportunity for switching, for flipping it. So imagine yourself to be something like the sun. Your consciousness, your awareness is like the sun. And your old belief system are like the clouds that move by. All you have to do is return to your center, not identifying with the clouds. Return to your new belief, your true belief, a belief that is more true, more kind, and more useful to you. It's a daily practice. It requires repetition. Imagine it's something like going to the gym. When you're lifting weights, in the beginning it seems difficult. But after a while, because you've practiced so much, it begins to become more and more easy for you. You'll slowly switch habits and begin this new way of thinking. Now, if you would like to go deeper into the subconscious, we are going to go into the second phase of this session. The second phase of this session is a guided meditation. You see, my dear friends, the mind is like an iceberg. The conscious part is the tip of the iceberg. But what lies beneath the surface of the water is the real thing that's moving that iceberg. It defines that iceberg. So we have to catch your limiting beliefs on a deeper level, on your subconscious level. And the perfect way to do that is to enter alpha mode or theta mode. In this state, you are deeply, deeply relaxed, and your mind is much more open to suggestions. Scientific studies have proven that when one does guided meditation, that through alpha mode and theta mode, the mind is 200 times more likely to adopt a new way of thinking than in the conscious mode. You can always go to my website and listen to the free guided meditation that I have available to you who are visiting the website. Either way, I really encourage you to do guided meditation combined with this new positive affirmation. So, my dear friends, thank you for joining this session this week. If you like it, please go ahead and share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. As always, this is Alkistis from Greece. See you next week.